recommend me someone that I should invite?
I have a friend, Tiago Filipe Costa. He is very passionate about game books.
Do you remember the famous Choose Your Own Adventure books from the 80s? Tiago Filipe Costa is not only a passionate game book reader, but also an author with written books and an online project to spread awareness for this hobby. Now, you have two options. Option A, you continue to watch this video and learn more about the game book industry, or Option B, skip and lose the opportunity to learn about the last 40 years of game book history. Hello, Tiago. Nice to meet you. Thank you for accepting this invitation or being part of this show and to talk about your projects and the interesting stuff you're doing for game books. Okay, so we're just starting playing Azul as well at the same time. So don't forget, it's your turn. You were the one chosen to start.
Yes.
So game books. There are so many games. There are so many books. Eventually, game books is something that some people know. But for us to start from a baseline, for everyone to be aware of what are we talking about when we say game books, can you give us a little bit of an explanation? What specifically are these books?
Yeah, sure. Well, game books are are a piece of interactive fiction which puts the reader in the role of the protagonist. The protagonist must choose the story, must choose the how the story will go, and sometimes the choices are good, sometimes the choices are bad, and this way the reader creates the story as long as he or she reads it.
Right. I know this by another name, which was do your own adventure or make your own adventure. Is it the same thing?
Choose your own adventure.
Choose your own adventure. That's it.
Yeah, it's a very well-known series of. I wouldn't call it game books because they don't have the gaming part. They are more like interactive literature than game books because they only have the choices, and they don't have other. They don't implement other things like dice roll or item management or scoring management like other game books implement.
Okay. So can you is there a famous example of a choose your own adventure book and a game book for us to be able to compare here?
You have really the choose your own adventure series, which are interactive literature that exists for almost, if not exactly, for 50 years.
50,
They have
wow.
been around. Yeah, they have been around since the 70s, but game books only became more famous in the 80s, in the early 80s, with the fighting fantasy game books, for instance, which were they were sold in Portugal by the title of Aventuras Fantásticas. They were sold in the 80s and 90s, and they were very. I think they were very famous in these parts, even though they stopped their publication in the early 2000s.
We're talking about the Ian Livingstone books, right? The famous Ian Livingstone.
Yeah, and Steve Jackson as well. They were the creators of the fighting fantasy game books.
The same Steve Jackson that also creates board games like Munchkin?
No.
It's a different one.
That's different. Yeah. That's the American Steve Jackson, which it's the American Steve Jackson, but he also wrote fighting fantasy game books. He also wrote 3 fighting fantasy game books.
Yeah, it sounds like we have a whole world here to explore today, which we're just scratching the surface now.
Yeah,
a whole new world, at least.
I wouldn't say a whole world. I would say more like a galaxy of
galaxy.
Game books.
Okay.
Yeah.
And allow me to tell you before we continue that you play very fast Azul. So I'm struggling here to have a conversation with you and play at the same time because you are a very fast player compared with previous guests. So I need to redouble my attention here to be able to follow you on Azul. But anyway, I'm more interested in the game books conversation today, because you are also, and let's make it public here, you are also
Yeah.
an author. You wrote some game books. So
Yeah.
what inspired you to start writing game books?
Yeah, I always loved to read, and but I always say that the game book genre, the fighting fantasy game books, were what made me like to read. I like fantasy. I like sci-fi. Not as much as fantasy, but I like fantasy and sci-fi and other things, other pieces of media and fiction because of fighting fantasy, and that's what inspired me to later to write my book some years ago, and that's what inspired me to try to create something similar to what I've been reading since my uh, teen years. Yeah, because I
Okay.
started reading game books
Mhm.
I was like 13. Yeah, I was 13 when I was presented with the fighting fantasy game books.
I confess that I don't. I only played. Do I say play or read for the book?
It's actually you read and play. It's both
Both
things.
things. So I can use
Yeah,
the both verbs. So
yeah. You can use.
I read only one book from the collection that you're mentioning,
Hmm. Which
which I
one?
don't know the name in English. Just it's something about the
Yeah,
galaxy,
tell
the
me in
traveler in the
Portuguese.
galaxy, the galaxy traveler or something. So I think the beauty
Oh,
of that collection, first of all,
I think yeah. The name in English, I think it's Star Strider. I think I know. It's
maybe
like an alien guy in a kind of a hoverboard, right?
it yes in a subway. So it's a scene in a subway. So that's the
Mm-hmm.
only one that I own. I still own that book from those times. And
Mm-hmm.
what I recall from that collection is, first of all the covers were
Mm-hmm.
amazing.
Yeah,
All of them, the
yeah.
covers. Even today, because we find lots of those books being sold on secondhand platforms, on
Mm-hmm.
used websites, marketplace, etc.
Mm-hmm.
People are selling those for high prices because I think they're valid. And I
Yeah,
always
totally
spend
agree.
time looking at those covers because they are always they look so good. They look like
Yeah.
there is a whole new, very interesting world behind that book that I definitely would
Mm-hmm.
like to explore. But
Yeah,
the second thing that I was going to
definitely.
say is that collection clearly has sci-fi stories, fantasy stories, horror stories. So it's not always
Yeah.
the same kind of world. It
Mhm.
changes. It changes.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Even
So
though the majority of the books are placed in a fictional universe, it's in a fictional place called Titan. It's a
Mhm.
fictional world.
Oh
There are some game books that deal with sci-fi, that deal with horror themes. For instance, one of my favorite game books of this series is called House of Hell, which was published here as A Mansão Diabólica,
yes.
and it's actually a very contemporary horror story. It's like a haunted house type of story.
Mhm.
So it's not fantasy, it's not medieval, but yeah, it's one of my favorite game books
Mhm.
of this collection, if not the favorite, my favorite from this collection.
Okay. I confess that I went back to those books some months ago. I found them online, so I downloaded and through a tablet, and I tried with the
Hmm.
kids. And I felt that, and I'm just going to share my personal opinion. I felt that
Hmm.
nowadays, when you have so many interactive stuff that you can do, board
Hmm.
games, video games, etc., the experience of going back to a book, um, and go through pages, jumping through pages, etc.,
Hmm.
it was it was something that was not as fun as before. Um, I don't know. Do you still think that the experience of game books is still valid nowadays, where you have so many interactive things?
Well, to me, it always is. I, I always enjoy when I pick up a game book and read it. And I know that we have all this digital. We are living in a digital era, in a heavy digital era that that kind of. I really don't know how to say this, but I still think that game books have these. They have this essence that they can be. They have this authentic essence that maintained from their inception, from when they appeared at the first time. They didn't change that much from the experience of a book and a game. Actually, things changed because we have new writers now. We have people that who. Okay, let me just. It's kind of hard. It's becoming hard to think and play it, to think to answer and play at the same time.
That's the idea. That's the idea.
Yeah.
It's my turn.
But there are writers that like to experiment with new rules and new ways to keep the game book genre new. You have new rules, new types of. I don't know, new types of combat, new types of choices. You have new rules. You have things like keywords and tick boxes, and there are so many things to explore and to do with game books that I think it can be always fresh, and it can be always fresh, and at the same time always maintain that authenticity of the 80s when GameBooks appeared for the first time.
I guess it's the same thing as with board games. So there are lots of digital experiences nowadays, video games, etc. But still, people find their way into board games, and board games are growing as a hobby. And I think there's a very simple and basic explanation for that as well, which is people are all day in front of screens. And including myself, there is a moment where you want to get away from that and find analogical experiences away from computers, away from phones, away from screens, and at the same time socialize, right? So at least board games fill that box, which is not the case for game books, because I think it's an isolated experience. I haven't seen any that you could play unless you just read the book together with other people, like I did with kids. But maybe that's also something that is helping revamping the game books, is getting back to analogic experiences. What do you think, Tiago? Does it make sense in any way?
Yeah, it makes sense. I would say that board games are coming back for quite some time, and I believe game books, even though they have a very specific audience, I believe they are coming back as well. So I think the experience is not exactly the same, but it's similar.
So I was not aware of this comeback. So maybe now, after this conversation, and everyone that is listening, maybe they become aware of this comeback and see and search for more of these products.
Actually, fighting fantasy is coming back to Portugal. Aventuras Fantásticas are coming back this year.
I saw something. Yes, they are going to be published again, right?
Yeah. Yes.
We're talking about the same books as before being reprinted. Tiago, is the same books
they're
reprinted?
Talking about the same. Yeah. Well, so far only 2 books are being reprinted, which is the first one, the Warlock of Firetop Mountain, and Death Trap Dungeon, which are 2 classics. And then let's hope that they continue.
The other 40 come as well. The other 40.
Sorry.
The other 40.
Yeah, the other 40. The other 40, and the others that were never published in Portugal.
Only in Brazil, right? Because I have the Brazilian version of a few of them that I could find online. the Brazilian version.
Yeah, even the Brazilian version, which was the Brazil has the publisher Jambô, who is working on the fighting fantasy game books for quite some years. But before they had Mark Saraiva, who published some of the some game books. They actually published less game books than us from the main fighting fantasy series. But they managed to publish some game books that we didn't that we didn't get.
Okay.
So and apart from the game books that were published in Portugal and game books that were published in Brazil, there are other game books that were never published in both countries. So let's hope that those game books are brought to Portugal one day.
It's now time. It's now time to go back to those classics. But I would like to confess something to you, Tiago, and probably you'll be shocked.
Okay.
Probably you'll be shocked, or you'll say, "Oh, I truly understand." Which is, so I remember then, my friends at school, and we're talking about 90s, I don't know, 95, 4, 6. My friends at school, they also had some books, and we talked about these books. Hey, mine is this, yours is that, etc. And I have a very vivid memory that everyone said to each other, I always skip the fights. Or I always when I get to a fight, I never throw dice. I just win and go to the winning option. Because no one wants to die, right? No one wants to die and have to start the book all over again.
That's not shocking at all.
Not shocking?
No, not shocking at all. Because when I was first introduced to these books, which was during recess when I was at school, by my colleagues, by my friends at the time, they also did the same. We also did the same. We skipped fights. We skipped luck tests. We skipped what were they called? The skill tests. Everything that was a test, we skipped it. We everything was successful to us.
So this is cheating, right?
Yeah, it was, but it's not like there wasn't anyone watching and saying that. We were playing by our rules. But these house rules. Even though that most books have anti-cheating rules that sometimes screwed us hard. For instance, when you go to a locked door and the text asks if you have a key, you want to say that you have the key, but the key has a number, and you have to go to the number written on that key. And if you don't know it,
the book got you.
Because I didn't explain this for those who still don't know the structure of a game book. The story is fragmented in pages, in numbered pages or paragraphs. When you read them in order, they don't make sense. That's because at the end of the page or at the end of the paragraph, there are a set of choices that you must do to proceed in the story. For instance, you are in a corridor, and you find a junction in the road, and the text says, if you want to go left, turn to 25. If you want to go right, turn to 55. And I say I want to go right, and then I go to the number 55, and I continue the story. And then other choices: do I open this door? Do I skip the door and continue? Do I fight this character? Do I try to talk to that character? That's how Gamebook works.
Do you have a favorite game book from childhood that sparked your passion?
Yes, I do. That's not an easy. That's an easy question, because you're asking from a childhood perspective, or more like my teen perspective, because I was introduced to these game books when I was 13, and
Let's go there.
And actually, my favorite book from that my favorite game book from that time was actually my first game book, the first game book that I played on my own, which was House of Hell. Okay, I'm doing this. It's actually hard.
Mm-hmm. So, and then after that, you could not stop acquiring all the books from the collection.
Yeah, I think I was the only person in my class. I was the only person in my class that really owned the game books, because all my friends were picking them from the local library, and I wanted to have those books for myself. I didn't want to return them. And now I'm screwed because I have all these. Oh my god!
Yeah, sorry for that. Sorry for that. Yeah. That was like the final blow. Sorry for that.
Oh my god.
You cannot skip this fight if it was a game book, right? You die. Negative
No.
14 points.
No, I don't.
Sorry,
No.
Jack, don't drop the call, please. Stay in the call.
I don't skip fights. Yeah, I don't skip fights in game books now.
You don't skip fights. Okay.
No.
Let's take a
Now
look
I
at
play
the
by the
scoring
rules.
here. Okay, so yeah, that's a big difference, but you were just catching up from your memory. Would you accept a rematch for us to try again while we continue our conversation?
Yes.
Okay, so let me just take care of that and propose the rematch.
Yes, I do. Oh, this is fun.
Okay, you should have an invitation in your direction there.
Propose a rematch.
The beauty of the game books, at least the ones that I know and we were talking about, is that even if you own the books, right, you can still revisit those books and try to find different paths, because there are branches that you can achieve the end of the book by going different directions and see a different story, correct?
Yes.
So
yes, they are not exactly. There are game books where very linear. For instance, in Livingstone's books, and I say that a lot in my reviews. Ian Livingstone is very linear in his stories. You have to follow a specific path if you want to get the good ending. You have to get specific objects, and you have to go through a specific path most of the time to get the good ending.
The good ending, because there are different degrees of ending. You could have the best ending possible, and then less good endings, but still ending the story.
Yes.
Which is a drive for you to try again and get a better result next time.
Yes. Sometimes the bad ending is you dying in a fight, for instance, having
Never
a
happened
bad.
to me.
Oh yeah, yeah, it happened, but it happened to me a lot. But that's the way the game is played. You can have bad choices and have your character die from a bad choice or die from a failed luck test, for instance. Maybe you can defeat the evil guy at the end, but you fail to have a specific object to clear everything out, and then you have the bittersweet ending, for instance. There are a lot of types of endings that you can achieve with this book.
Okay, so Tiago, just between you and I, that no one is listening. Imagine that you are reading a game book for 1 hour. You've been doing your decisions, you've been going through the dungeon, etc. And then suddenly there is a strength test that you need to do. You need to jump a pit, etc. You roll the die, you fail, you end up in the pit, you get the spikes, you die.
Yes.
Do you put the book aside and say, "Oh, I died, I need to start all over again," or you just, let me re-roll this?
I would lie if I said that I never did that. Reroll, reroll a bad roll, or even come back to a previous choice to take another another course, another choice, for instance.
Yeah, so I that's the way I played. So I had like a marker marking like the previous step in order if I need to go back, I didn't lose the page where I was. So
Yeah, there is a term that many game book readers use, which is, and I could be wrong. I don't know if it's exactly these words, but it's the 5-finger bookmark, in which your fingers are always in the previous choices, so that when if one of the choices turns out to be the bad one, the worst choice, you can
You go back.
always go back because you have all these fingers holding the pages,
bookmarking,
so that bookmarking
Interesting.
all the previous choices, and then you can go back and do different ones.
Okay. So regarding our conversation, let me just finish the turn here. We have here also now the chance to choose 2 paths for our conversation. So path A, we talk about the projects and what you're doing on social media and your channel, and go to page 40. And then path B, we can talk about more what's happening on the game books sector and the mechanics and other things. But I would like, I'm reading the book now, and I would like to decide to understand better what's happening on your side with your channel, social media, Instagram, and what you're doing right there. Can you talk a little bit about your projects now?
Yes, I can, absolutely. So my project is called GamebookGuild. It's a YouTube channel, even though I also have the Instagram page and the TikTok as well. Even though the TikTok doesn't have that much content so far, in which my goal is to let people know about game books. Actually, what I do in this channel is like book reviews. I present books, fighting fantasy ones, and lately I started with another collection of game books and with another series, which is called Lone Wolf. It's very well known. It's very well known. Not in Portugal, unfortunately, but it's very well known in other countries. It's an epic of almost 32 books in the main series. In the main series, because you have all these other side series of the Lone Wolf series, and I'm talking about it in my channel as well. I started with the first book of the Kai series, which is in the 32 books of the Lone Wolf series. They are divided into several series, and the Kai series are covers the first 5 books in the entire epic of Lone Wolf. And I'll be covering the first 5 books in the series, in which I explain the rules, I explain the story, what's happening, the choices, and everything else. And I also do reviews of fighting fantasy game books that are chosen by by my followers on Instagram. So every 2 weeks, I put 2 books in Instagram stories, and I ask people to vote on the game book they want me to read and review in the I think 2 weeks later, so that I have time to read the book, to analyze the book, and then to record and edit the video and present in my channel.
Okay. So for people that are interested, the links for these projects are in the comments, so you can visit and follow Tiago and his work. But you're also an author. You've published some books, correct?
Yeah, I published 1 game book. It's called O Voo do Corvo, or in English, The Flight of the Raven. It was published in 2020. At the end, it was on December 2020. But then the book will be republished by another publisher. And it will come out, I believe, in March this year. Let's hope.
When you say publish, there's a physical copy of it or just digital?
No. There will be a physical copy. Yeah.
Okay. So congratulations for that as well. Because I've seen that you applied there are some awards in this area. So you consider yourself like a visible person in this sector that is trying to have a name as an author, creating books as well, like the next Ian Livingstone? Tiago?
No, I don't want to be the next Ian Livingstone. I want to have my own identity as a writer. But well, I like to be in touch with the community, and these awards, which is called the Lindenbaum Prize for Short Game Book Fiction. It's like a contest that happens once a year for like 4 years. This is the 4th year of this award, of this contest, in which people can submit short stories, short game book stories, like 100 sections, game books, which is acceptable. You see, because fighting fantasy game books have 400. That's the usual number of sections, the numbered sections. And this contest only allows you to write
maximum 100.
Maximum 100. Yeah.
So we're talking about 100 steps that you can take in an adventure, right? Sections.
Yeah. 100 sections. Yeah, and we can create the game books. We can establish our own rules. We can put dice rolls. We can do whatever we want. We can be experimental. At least it's what I do when I write game books. When I try to write some new story, I want to experiment on doing something different, to implement a new rule, to implement some other mechanics, try to do something different than I did previously.
Let's explore your book creation method and understand better how these books are written. So, for example, how do you balance things like the storytelling part and the game mechanics in your writing? Is there like a perfect balance, or how do you do that?
There is never. I believe there is never a perfect balance, because, well, to me, the story is one thing and the game mechanics is another. The game mechanics are something that you use to pass the. For instance, there are several tests, there are several combats, and that, to me, sometimes it can influence the story. Other times, maybe it doesn't influence that much. Mostly it's what you want to do with the story, with what you want to create, what you want to present. For instance, there are several. Okay, let me. In my game book, for instance, one of the rules is the use of keywords, and keywords are a method of record your actions, several actions that you do that can bring consequences later on. For instance, early on in my game book, in Flight of the Raven, when you start when you begin on the starting city, and you are in the section that explains what's happening in the city, and you have all the options to explore the city any way you can. But at the start of that section, you have a keyword. The text asks if you have a keyword called assassin. And at first, you don't know what that keyword does because you don't have it. But during your exploration of the town, there is the possibility that you can murder an important person from town. And if you were seen doing that, then
You
you
become
will get that keyword.
okay.
And then when you get to that section, and when the text asks you if you have that keyword,
Okay.
then that means that the story will change according to that, which means that now, according to the story, since you murder someone very important, and you were seen, now you are being wanted for murder, and you have to navigate more carefully around town.
Okay.
That's yeah, and like that, there are a lot of other situations that you can that the story can change according to your actions.
From a story writing perspective, so if you create branching options where I could go this way, not being an assassin, or go the same way being an assassin, does that mean two different branches counting for those 100, or you have like a next branch, but depending on if you have the trait or not, the keyword or not, you just read the common branch and then the deviation that exists considering the trait is there or not? How do you build it?
Well, when I start writing or when I create the story, I always create the starting point and the ending point. So I have to create all the uh, all the conditions so that your character can achieve the ending, even though that he or she may have the worst choices, or yeah, I like to give the character every possible way to get to the end of the story, even though that some of the choices can be the worst type. For instance, for example, in this example that I used, the assassin part, it doesn't affect the main story. It doesn't affect the main mission, but it only
Mm-hmm.
difficults what you want to do while you are in that town. But if you leave town, then the story will proceed
No problem.
as usual. It's normal. But for instance, there are several times in which you can get okay, this is not going well for me. There are several times in which when you fight an opponent, one of the wizards from the evil wizard clan that you're fighting against, you can get a pendant with a raven's head. And if you put that pendant, you get automatically a keyword, the keyword raven.
Mm-hmm.
And there are times when if you get to a part of the story when the text asks you if you have that keyword, and if you do, then things won't be things won't go that well for you.
Okay, so there's like an extra thing that happens if you have the keyword.
Yeah. The story won't go that well for you. For instance, I'm trying not to give that many spoilers about the story.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm pulling out spoilers. Apparently, no. And
I
if
want people to
the
read.
book is called The Flight of the Raven and you have a raven head, probably it's important, right? Probably it's an important thing.
Yeah, probably it's important. Probably it's not important. Maybe you should have. Maybe you should get rid of it. Oh yeah, The Flight of a Raven. Actually, it's not yet published, but the titles that were used in that competition, the Lindenbaum Prize, they are other stories that I wrote. They are more horror themed stories that I wrote. The Flight of the Raven is more like the typical medieval fantasy story, the other three game books that I wrote in the previous years for that competition are more like Lovecraftian horror game books in a fantasy setting. It's actually in the same world that I created in for the Flight of the Raven, but in a different place.
Yes, one of them is called the Eldritch Key, so there's a pretty good connection here with Cthulhu and Lovecraft. When it comes to playtesting, how does it work? Playtesting.
Well, I playtest all the books that I write, and sometimes I ask my friends to playtest with me. So that's not something that's very hard because I am very careful when I write game books, and I usually use two methods. I either write the game books, I either write the story and I do the flow charts with all the with all the choices and variations and all that. And oh, it's my turn. Okay. With all the choices and all the variations and the other way that I use to write game books is with a tool which is called Gamebook Authoring Tool, which is a software that you can use to create that automatically creates a flowchart while you write, and you can follow the progress of the story as long as while you're writing. You write the game book, you write the choices, and it creates a flowchart while you're writing. It's actually very useful.
Imagine so, yeah.
I wrote, I shouldn't be saying that because I don't know if it will ever be published, but I wrote a sequel to The Flight of the Raven entirely on that software.
What are some of the biggest challenges in designing a game book compared with a traditional novel?
Well, a traditional novel is linear because you have these, the story must move forward. And in a game book, it's not only the story, but oh my God, I'm going to lose this. So, and writing a game book is a challenge by itself because you have to not think about the starting point and the ending point, but also all the variations that go along with it. You have to choose what happens when your character goes to the left. You have to write what happens when the character when your character goes to the left. You have to write what happens when the character wants to fight another character, for instance. There are a lot of variations that you can create, and also if you want your book to be linear or more exploration approach, because there are game books out there that are open world. And I know this may sound weird because it's a book. How can how can a game book be open world? But it's possible, and I didn't know that. One of my favorite game book series of all time, which is called Fabled Lands, is actually it's an open world series in which you travel across a land, and each book covers a part of that land. And when you leave the map on that book, the text says which other book you have to open and which section you must read to continue the story.
Cross books.
Yeah. You can create one character. You can generate one character, and then you can have a lot of adventures in a wide world. And what you do in one book can influence things in another. You have a lot of quests to do, and it's. I didn't know it was possible, but it is. And when I wrote Flight of the Raven, I tried to implement that sense of open world. my game book is not open world. It's like a semi-open world experience, but you can go back and forth while you're traveling to meet the end guy, the villain. So you can actually travel back and forth travel through between towns. You can explore other towns. You can go explore the entire kingdom any way you want, and if you want, you are not. It's not mandatory for you to explore everything, but you can do it. Really
amazing, like a big RPG.
Yeah, it's actually it's the challenging part of trying to write this type of game book. The majority of game books always push you forward to the main goal.
Mm-hmm.
But mine, even though that you have a main goal, you have to go to that place. You can go whenever you want. You can explore. You can get more things for your character. You can strengthen your character, prepare your character for the end game. So I try to create that sense of freedom in this game book.
Okay. Only if I experience, I will be able to really understand how these things could be built. But at least from your explanation, it sounds like it's
kind of hard to explain because it's hard to imagine how this is possible in a book. But I can assure you, it is possible.
I was going to say you're raising the interest of everyone listening to explore these new areas. People that like to play RPGs, role-playing games, etc., video games or tabletop ones.
Yeah, look up for Fabled Lands.
Fabled Lands.
Yeah, Fabled Lands. Yeah, look up for Fabled Lands, Steam Highwayman, Legendary Kingdoms, Vulcanverse, and I guess that's it. Yeah.
Tiago, so meanwhile, I didn't want to interrupt, but the game ended, right? We have it on the screen. Yeah. So I guess you got some problems there with the negative points, right? You accumulate lots of negative points. Maybe you are playing too fast.
Yeah, I was trying to play as fast as I could, so I could answer.
Yeah, maybe it's too fast, but we still have time to one more. Do you accept one more and see if we can? Now that you've done two, you can focus on getting the best styles and retaining, getting negatives to see if you're able to overcome.
Yeah, sure.
The results. Okay, so let's start the third and final. So whoever wins this one wins everything.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. Let's see.
Let's go.
Well, we're talking about digital games, etc. What are your thoughts on digital adaptations of game books? Do you see any future or in interactive apps replacing the books themselves?
I don't think apps will ever replace the experience of a book. Never. But they can help sharing that same experience of reading a game book. You have, for instance, you have Fighting Fantasy Classics, which is an app in which you can play most of the Fighting Fantasy game books, and you have the dice rolls. You can even choose if you want to be a free read mode in which you can like be a cheater. If you want, you can go back and choose other things, and you have all this freedom. Well, it's not that bad. We have a lot of choice-based video games that were clearly inspired by the logic of game books. We have a lot of video games that are they are story-driven, and our choices really affect the story and change the story, and that was clearly influenced by what game books did in the 80s. And we have, for instance, I don't know if you ever heard of Bandersnatch. That's the Netflix movie. That Netflix.
That's a Black Mirror episode, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's interactive, and it talks about game books. It talks about the choose your own adventure books.
Yes. So it's already an important topic because Black Mirror also did an episode on that, right? Does Bandersnatch exist or was just invented for that episode?
Yeah,
Just
it was
for that.
invented. Yeah,
Okay.
it was invented.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the episode revealed some weird things about the author of that book, and I said I said to myself, that's really weird. This is not possible. So yeah, the Bandersnatch game book doesn't exist exactly.
Okay. What strange things did the episode remind us, Tiago?
Yeah, the episode is about a game developer who is trying to convert the Bandersnatch game book into a video game.
Yes.
This was in the 80s, and if I recall, the ending is about this game reviewer that reviews the video game Bandersnatch, and according to your depending on your choices, it can give you a good review or a very bad one.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I remember the most about Bandersnatch.
I'll revisit the episode in the next days since you're bringing it. It's an interesting closure for our conversation. Okay. Mm-hmm. What about the AI? Does the rise of AI generated storytelling will affect somehow, in your opinion, game books?
Yeah. Well, game books to me is a form of art. It's literature, so it's a form of art. So it won't escape. It is not escaping actually the AI influence. If you go to ChatGPT and ask it to write a game book, it will write, but it will write it badly. And I tried it before, and it's not the same thing. It lacks care, it lacks effort, it lacks that human part that you have when you write something, when you create something. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that you shouldn't use AI to that you shouldn't use AI at all. But AI can be used, but don't use it to replace what you can do by yourself. And this actually happened some years ago. I was on Reddit. There is this subreddit called GameBooks. There's a GameBook subreddit, and there was this guy that showed his project, which was a website in which you could create game books, your custom game books with a click of a button. And that outraged me, and I went on a rant in that subreddit about it, because that enraged me quite a lot, because I felt that he was trying to replace the experience of writing a game book with AI. It's like write a set of prompts and click on a button, and then there you have it. And then, as if that wasn't bad enough, he also said that the readers could also write the continuation of the stories. It's like if I asked my readers to keep writing the stories for me, and that's not what this is all about. This is the story that I bring to my readers. I want them to give me feedback on the stories, of course. I want them to tell me what they liked, what they didn't like, what I can improve. But I don't want to tell like half of the story and then present it to them and then say, now write it yourselves.
Yeah. Weird times we're living. Weird times.
Yeah, I don't like that. You can use. I'm not that's. I'm not saying that I won't use AI for anything. You can use it. It can be helpful, but we can use it wisely and not to replace one entire work of fiction, like writing a book or doing a movie or anything else.
Mm-hmm. there will be no value in that, because then everyone can recreate and do the same thing. So the value of these things just drop, right? And we want that human touch. At least for now, AI cannot go there, but Tiago, right? In a few years, we don't know. Maybe if in a few years you just have an app, you go there, and I've thought about that for movies, whatever content creation. You just go there, you put like the requirements. I want a vampire story. I want the character to be a lady, whatever. Generate, and then it generates something for you, unique for you. You go through. In the end, you score, and you pay a subscription to have the access to that kind of content. And I don't think that's too much science fiction for us nowadays, right?
No. Unfortunately, it's not. I also believe that, unfortunately.
Which could open other opportunities, right? Right now, the way you are hearing and looking at it is, okay, so an app like this will replace me creating books, but maybe you can have a different role. I don't know. I don't have that visibility, but maybe it will open other opportunities for content creators or authors in a different way. But don't ask me how. I don't have that clarity.
Yeah.
When you contact with your readers, what is the wildest or the most unexpected reader reaction you've ever received?
Most of what I get is from the other smaller game books that I wrote for the competitions, which are the feedback of the judges.
Okay.
The judges all give their feedback. Not only the judges, but also some of the readers, some of the people who vote for the game books that are on the competition. And I like most of the feedback because this is feedback from other writers and other game book enthusiasts, and some of those reviews and some of that feedback, some of those are tough but fair. And most of the time is about the rules, how sometimes the rules can be a little bit confusing, and how they thought the story was going one way and it ended up in another way that didn't please them, or it can be anything. And that type of feedback always makes me think and try to improve on the next game book. For instance, in the previous contest, one of the judges gave this was a general feedback. He gave the same type of feedback to everyone, which was the way the rules are presented. When you open a game book, you see the rules in the first pages.
Mm-hmm.
But today, with the lower attention span that unfortunately many people have, many young people have, most of them don't want to waste time in that technical part because they will lose the interest in the book. They will lose the interest in the story because they are reading pages and pages and pages of rules.
How do they learn the game then? Or to play?
And there is a way to turn that around.
How?
It's you introduce them to the story, and during the story they are doing the rules.
The tutorial.
Like tutorial.
Yeah, okay. Like makes sense.
There is one game book that does that very wonderfully, and I have to turn to see which one is. It's Rider of the Black Sun. It's a game book that whose story is presented in chapters, and each chapter presents a small piece of a rule, and then you use that chapter to practice that rule. And then the second chapter introduces a new rule, and so forth, and so on and so on. And this last game book that I wrote, this short game book that I wrote for this year's competition, already implements that that feedback. So I'm not putting the rules at first. I'm introducing the reader to the story, to the background, and then I will explain the rules while
slowly along the way.
Yeah, along the way.
Cool. Okay, Tiago. So 9 against 8 points. So I guess we're still. This is very balanced as last ultimate game. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah.
Okay. Since it's going to go very well because I'm now going to get some negative points. These reds that you left me. Thank you for that. Thank you. So because this is a board games channel mainly, right? I bring these different topics, but mainly it's a board games channel for now. What's your connection with board games?
Well, it's not. Well, I am a game book collector, not a board game collector. But I like board games. But my connection with board games is more when I go to events. For example, there is one event here in Porto, which is the InvictaCon, which is a yearly event.
A con?
Yeah. That's an opportunity for me to experience other board games, and I go with my wife and with a couple of friends. We try all these board games. I have several with me, but we barely play board games here. Only when we get together with friends. Sometimes we play board games, but most of the time, instead of bringing a board game to the table, I bring a game book. So yeah,
go figure.
Yeah.
But in terms of board games, what names pop your mind when you think about what you have or what you play or your favorites? Give us a few examples first to understand your.
I love Atmosphere.
Atmosphere. You got me there.
Yeah.
Atmosphere.
I love Atmosphere. Yeah. We played that some time ago, and actually, I love the because you use an app and you have the gatekeeper that talks to you, and you have a time limit to play the game. It's actually very fun to play.
Okay, I'm looking very silly now because I don't know that game. I need to look it up. Atmosphere.
Yeah, let me just.
I thought if you have it around, maybe.
Yeah, it's Atmosphere. The Atmosphere.
I don't know what that is. Sorry. Yeah, I thought you were going to say Eldritch Horror or Arkham Horror based on what we discussed before.
I have Arkham Horror, but the card game.
The card game. Okay, sounds like something that you would like.
Yeah, I only have the core game of Arkham Horror. I don't have any of the expansions. I don't have.
It's a very good example for something new that probably one day you would like to explore because you have card game that works like a book that tells you a story. Wow,
Yeah.
right? It just fits everything we've been discussing here.
Yes, because it has Arkham Horror is like almost a narrative game, and that's what dragged me to that game. That's what made me want to buy the game and experience it and experiment on it. And I would be lying if I said that game didn't give me some ideas for the game books that I write.
And if you want to go deep there's a lot of expansions and
too many expansions.
It's a money trap, right? If you go there, that direction. So be aware.
Yeah, I'm okay with the core game by now.
The core game just have 3 scenarios, right? If I'm not mistaken, 3 scenarios.
Yes, 3 scenarios. Okay. Yeah, I also like the card game versions of certain games. For instance, I don't like Monopoly, but I enjoy a lot Monopoly Deal.
Okay, it's faster.
I'm not very fond of Catan, but I have the card game of Catan, and I like it a lot.
So you like card games then? A few examples that we've been discussing. Card games, in fact. Which pieces should I take now? Because this is getting closer. And you are on the lead, Tiago. You are on the lead. So I need to be careful here. Make sure that in the end...
I have to remind you that this has scored, and I have to look here.
Probably going to an Invicticon or a con, it's also a good place for you to somehow display the work you've been doing with the game books. Is this something that you have explored or you've thought about? Showing your books there?
Maybe in the future, when I have more titles published, I would like to take the game books that I wrote for these competitions and create a kind of an anthology series. That's what I have in mind, because it's writing. Okay, of course, writing a 100 section game book is easier than writing. It's easier than when I wrote The Flight of the Raven, which has 655 sections. It's easier to write a 100 section game book, although more challenging because you have to think about a very contained story, and you must not create that many choices that could create a lot of variations, because you have to go to point A to point B, and you have to contain the story. Yeah, you cannot make too many things up.
Yeah. Be aware, Tiago, that I've triggered the end game, so the game will end in the end of this round. Just for everyone to be clear, when you say an anthology, what is an anthology? Is it a collection of stories?
Yeah, it would be a collection of stories. When I say an anthology, it would be putting the 4 short game books into one game book. So the book would have all those 4 stories. They are stories that are interconnected with each other, but only in theme, and not like you have the same character, you have the same items. Not that they are different stories, but they are interconnected with each other.
Okay, I'm really worried with the game with Azul here, because I was taking along to play, because I think I'm gonna get screwed with negative points. So I'm really scared with the outcome here, because I don't have ways to
this one.
I don't maybe I don't think I will be able to fit some of the colors there. And this is not going well. Let's see if it happens to both. I cannot foresee while talking at the same time. It's not possible. I don't have that mindset. But let's see. So we're closer to the end. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah.
So what are my options? Oh, I can still pick the blue ones. Oh, you can
do this. I can do this.
You get the yellow. So I oh. Thank you
I saw
for
that
the
yellow and I thought, why
8
not?
negative points. 8 negative points. So let's see. The final scoring is coming up. Yeah, final scoring.
Okay. Let's see.
Okay. Yeah. So this would be the moment where I would go back to another finger that I had bookmarking a page and try to do something different. +7, +2.
Okay.
And you won, Tiago. Wow, congratulations. And I'm keeping my promise as we discussed.
Please tell me you didn't let me win.
The one that wins the last wins it all, Tiago. Thank you very much.
Okay.
We are closer to the end, and I always ask everyone, all the guests in the show, if they could recommend me someone that could have an interesting story like yourself, or an interesting project for me to also bring to this show. Who do you think could be a good guest for us?
My wife, she has a personal project that she is developing. It's about marketing and personal development.
Well, challenge accepted, Tiago. So for everyone listening and that got interested in these topics, don't forget to look at the comments. I'm leaving there the links for Tiago pages, Tiago projects, and Tiago books, the ones that are available. And I hope you also enjoy, and that this video helps more people to get to your projects and to this area and be future readers of game books.
Thank you very much. Let's hope, because that's what I want. I want more people to know about these books, and to bring more readers, and who knows, more writers of this type of fiction.
And don't forget to see the Bandersnatch episode on Netflix for Black Mirror, because it also brings some context for everything that we discussed today. Tiago, thank you very much. I enjoyed. I haven't revisited this world in a while, so it's going back to memory lane. Everything that we discussed with the books, the experiences, the roles, the cheating. So I really enjoyed. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Goodbye.